Good morning, cybersecurity professionals. Today is Wednesday, March 5th, 2025, and you're listening to Cup of Cyber, your go-to source for the latest in cybersecurity news and insights. In today's episode, we're covering some major developments in the cyber world. We'll start with a new campaign by the Chinese APT group Lotus Panda, which has been deploying updated versions of its SageRunX backdoor to target governments and critical industries. Then, we'll break down some critical VMware vulnerabilities that are being actively exploited, putting virtualization environments at serious risk. After that, we'll look at the latest trends in distributed denial of service attacks, why they're evolving, who they're targeting, and what you can do to defend against them. Finally, we'll talk about the future of cryptography in a post-quantum world and why security teams should start preparing now. So grab your coffee and settle in. Let's dive into today's cybersecurity briefing. Our first story today focuses on the Chinese APT group known as Lotus Panda. This group has been on the radar for years, engaging in cyber espionage targeting government agencies, telecommunications, and manufacturing sectors in Asia. Their latest campaign involves a newly evolved version of their SageRunX backdoor. This malware has been in use since at least 2016, but researchers have now discovered updated variants that are more sophisticated and harder to detect. The attackers are leveraging popular platforms like Dropbox, X, formerly Twitter, and Zimbra as command and control channels, allowing them to issue commands, exfiltrate data, and persist on compromised systems, all while blending in with normal network traffic. One of the more alarming aspects of this new campaign is how Lotus Panda is using Zimbra mail accounts to issue commands directly from email content. This allows them to maintain stealthy operations within compromised environments for long periods. What can cybersecurity teams do to defend against this? First, implement strong network monitoring to detect unusual traffic patterns to cloud services like Dropbox and Zimbra. Second, harden email security by training employees to recognize phishing attempts and deploying advanced filtering solutions. Third, deploy endpoint detection and response, EDR tools that can identify and mitigate sophisticated malware like SageRunX. Finally, enforce strict access controls to limit user privileges and minimize the impact of a breach. Lotus Panda's tactics are evolving, and organizations need to stay ahead of these threats with proactive defense strategies. Next up, we need to talk about some serious vulnerabilities affecting VMware products. Broadcom has issued emergency security updates to fix 3 critical flaws in VMware ESXi, Workstation, and Fusion, flaws that attackers are actively exploiting in the wild. These vulnerabilities allow attackers with administrative access to a virtual machine to break out of their sandbox, execute arbitrary code on the host, and even leak sensitive data. That means an attacker who gains access to one compromised VM could pivot to the underlying infrastructure, potentially affecting multiple virtual machines on the same host. Given that VMware products are widely used in enterprise environments, these vulnerabilities pose a significant risk, and organizations should patch immediately. To reduce exposure, apply VMware security updates without delay. The patches have already been released, and delaying could leave your infrastructure exposed. Restrict administrative access to virtual machines, ensuring only trusted users have elevated privileges. Segment your networks so that compromised virtual machines can't easily spread malware to others. Monitor logs and conduct regular audits to detect any unauthorized activity that could indicate an exploit attempt. If you're running VMware in your environment, this is a drop everything and patch situation. Don't wait until it's too late. Next up, let's talk about distributed denial of service attacks. DDoS attacks have been around for decades, but they've changed a lot over the years. What started as simple volumetric attacks to overwhelm a single target has now become a much more sophisticated game. Attackers today are using large-scale botnets, often made up of compromised IoT devices, to launch highly distributed and persistent attacks. Instead of just overwhelming a single IP address, modern DDoS campaigns target multiple systems at once, making mitigation even harder. One of the biggest shifts in DDoS attacks is their role as a distraction. We're seeing more cases where attackers launch a DDoS attack not just to cause disruption, but to divert security teams' attention while they deploy ransomware or exfiltrate sensitive data in the background. How can organizations defend against this? Invest in DDoS protection services that can detect and block malicious traffic before it reaches your infrastructure. Use rate limiting and geo-blocking to filter out suspicious requests from known attack regions. Deploy anomaly-based monitoring that can spot unusual spikes in traffic before they escalate into full-blown outages. Have an incident response plan ready. If your organization becomes a target, knowing how to react quickly can minimize downtime and damage. DDoS attacks aren't going anywhere, and if anything, they're becoming more dangerous. Being proactive is key to staying ahead of these threats. Finally, let's talk about a topic that's going to redefine cybersecurity in the coming years: post-quantum cryptography. With advances in quantum computing, many of the encryption methods we rely on today, like RSA and ECC, could eventually become obsolete. A sufficiently powerful quantum computer could break these encryption schemes in a matter of hours, rendering today's secure communications completely vulnerable. The good news is that cybersecurity researchers and organizations like NIST are already working on quantum-resistant encryption algorithms. These new cryptographic methods aim to withstand quantum computing threats, ensuring long-term security for encrypted communications and data. For organizations, the time to start preparing is now. Take inventory of your cryptographic assets. Identify where your organization uses traditional encryption methods that could be vulnerable in a post-quantum world. Follow NIST's post-quantum cryptography standardization process and begin planning for eventual migration to quantum-safe encryption. Engage with vendors and service providers to ensure they're also planning for quantum security. Adopt hybrid encryption models that combine traditional cryptography with post-quantum algorithms as an interim security measure. Quantum computing might not break traditional encryption overnight, but when it does, organizations that haven't planned ahead will be left scrambling. The transition to quantum-resistant security needs to start today. And that's a wrap for today's Cup of Cyber. We covered everything from APT attacks to VMware vulnerabilities, evolving DDoS threats, and the future of cryptography. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us keep bringing you the latest cybersecurity insights. You'll find links to all the articles we discussed today in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay secure.